Nikki Moore, author by the sea. I live in beautiful Dorset and I'm published by HarperCollins, most notably the Love London series. Thank you for joining me today. Wanted to say a couple of things really. One of the things that happened this week to me, which was really exciting, is that I've announced that I'm going to be writing commercial women's fiction as Ella Albright for one more chapter, which is part of HarperCollins. So, you know, if you're friends with me on Facebook or you follow me on Twitter, address here, or Twitter handle I should say, then you may have seen that. Really, really exciting, just waiting for publication date, and that's women's commercial fiction set in Dorset. What's also been very exciting is actually I was talking in last week's vlog about the editorial process, and I've just had both line edits and copy edits back for the book that's coming out in 2020, so I am knee deep in those at the moment. So ironic that I was talking about it in last week's vlog, now I'm all over it in terms of editing. So today's topic is about different models of publishing. I was asking people on Facebook the other day, you know, I said I've got lots of ideas about what I can vlog about, but I want to do what's helpful for people, and therefore are there any burning issues that people want to know more about? And one of my kind of Facebook friends was saying that she's got a friend who wants to publish children's books, but she's having some real issues with it. So I thought I'd talk about the different models of publishing. So what are the different routes? So most of my experience is actually the traditional publishing route. And one of my writerly buddies, Tracy, actually asked me, you know, have I ever self-published? And I haven't, but I did actually think, just before I got my offer of my contract with HarperCollins, my first one, I had thought to myself, right, that's it. If by this time next year I haven't gone the traditional route, I haven't been offered a contract, then actually I'll self-publish. There are reasons that I wanted to try the traditional route first, which I will share with you in a moment. But I hope that you find this vlog useful. So the traditional route, so the big publishing houses like HarperCollins, they take all of the risk. So they bear all of the costs. So you get offered a contract, and it might be an advance contract, which means that you get a lump sum that you've then got to earn out with royalties, or you might get a royalty first contract where you don't receive any money until the royalties start rolling in from your book sales. But in essence, you know, the big publishers, they take the risk, so they bear the cost of things like, you know, making a cover for the book, the PR and marketing, the editorial process. So they might send your book out, you know, your manuscript out to an external consultant. They'll bear the cost of that. They'll bear the cost of, you know, print runs if your book is going to be a paperback. So they bear all the costs, and it's all of their time. And as an author, what you do is, you know, you're writing the book, you're doing the edits that they ask you to do, and of course you're going to be expected to do some social media. But all the technical things that go on behind the scenes in terms of actually producing it, getting a book ready for publication, putting it up on all the platforms, etc., it's done by the publisher. I personally like that model. I like having those things done for me. I work full time, and I would find it really, really difficult to have to do all the production stuff myself and also bear those costs. So, you know, at the moment it suits me, and I'll keep going with that model of publishing. The other thing to think about is if you want to be published in that kind of more traditional way, but you don't want to go with one of the big publishing houses, you know, you want to be able to actually be part of something which is a bit smaller and more intimate, and where you're not kind of fighting against the crowd of hundreds of other authors, is there are quite a few independent presses, often referred to as indie presses, and they tend to be smaller boutique publishers, you know, maybe set up by one person or maybe two, and they've got just a few employees, and they're independent, so they're not part of a big publishing house, you know, which is worldwide. So like HarperCollins has got lots of different imprints and arms to it, and they do quite a lot in terms of publishing. So indie presses can be really great, and I've got author friends who've had really good experiences with indie presses. They tend to be able to get books to the market much more quickly and be really responsive to the market, whereas with a bigger house, you know, you might write a book and it might not come out for a year after you've delivered it, you know, edits included and the final version's ready. Sometimes it takes, you know, a year and a half, and that's because they've got lots and lots of different authors that they're publishing, and they've got to try and find a slot for your book. So if you're a little bit impatient, and you want to be with a press who have got fewer authors to look after, and maybe are able to be a bit more innovative and a bit more flexible, then an indie press might be the way to go for you. And some of the indie presses are doing really, really well. There are some really good presses out there, and some of them are winning awards and have got best-selling authors. And authors that I know that are with indie presses really like that more personal kind of one-to-one touch. So that's traditional publishing. Indie presses also bear the costs and bear the risks in the same way as the bigger publishing houses. Sometimes with an indie press, I think you have a bit more control in terms of your book and your career, and you often have a bit more of a say in terms of what a cover might look like, or the way a book might be marketed, or maybe even the time of year it might come out. So you maybe have a little bit more control than being with a big publishing house. So then we think about self-publishing. So as I said earlier, I've not self-published, but I do know people who have self-published. Self-publishing basically means that you are in complete control of getting your book ready for publication. You're in control of what the cover looks like. There are platforms that you can publish on, like Amazon. They've got their own direct publishing program. You have control in terms of blurb, strap lines, genres, where things are listed, the kind of tags that you can put against your book, where it might sit in terms of genre, title, you name it, you have complete control. And actually what you also get is a much higher royalty rate. So often self-publishing, you're going to get 70% royalties in terms of any book sales, whereas traditional publishing, it's more like 25%. So it's quite a big difference there. The flip side is that whilst you've got complete control of your book, you bear the costs of getting your book ready and getting it to market. So you're going to pay for the cover art, getting a really good cover ready. You're going to potentially pay editorial costs if you want someone else to look at it. And I would really, really, really recommend that you do that, because what you want to do is have the best quality book out there in the marketplace for your readers. You're going to potentially, if you're going to go paperback, you're going to have the costs of a print run. So whilst you have almost complete control of your project, you've also got all the costs. What you've also got to think about is the amount of time involved. I know self-published authors who work 60, 70 hours a week between trying to write a book and then edit it, and then the cover art, getting it ready in the right format for publication, doing all the PR marketing themselves. It takes a lot of time, and often you're trying to do all that, and then you're also trying to write the next book along. So it's a lot of work. So I suppose it's a personal decision. You've got to weigh up the pros and cons in terms of which way you go. There have been some phenomenally successful self-published authors. So for instance, Tracy Bloom sold lots and lots of copies of her books. And I guess what you can also think about is, the model's quite flexible, because actually I read an article recently, I've heard about hybrid authors for quite a few years now, and there was an article I read called The Rise of the Hybrid Author. A hybrid author is an author who is both traditionally published and also chooses to self-publish alongside. So they kind of, for me, it feels like they've got the best of both worlds. And I think if I was ever in a position to maybe give up the day job or go part-time, I might think about being published by HarperCollins or a big publisher, and also self-publishing, maybe some short stories. I haven't got the ability to do that at the moment. I don't feel that I could juggle a full-time job and exclusively be a self-published author, but being a hybrid author does give you that flexibility. What you'd want to check out though is that if you are a traditionally published author, you'd want to check in your contract whether you're actually allowed to publish yourself as self-published author, because there might be restrictions. So either if you've got an agent, you would ask their advice, or you could join the Society of Authors. It doesn't cost very much at all, and you can actually get advice from them about things like that, including contracts. So a great service. So have a think about that. It's a personal decision whether you go traditional route, whether you go self-published, whether you're a hybrid author, you do a bit of both, or whether it's indie press. What I would counsel you against is vanity publishing, and I think this is something that a lot of people get caught out. So vanity publishing, it's not self-publishing where you're in control and you're bearing the cost yourself, and it's your decision, what you spend money on. Vanity publishing are basically companies who will charge you It could be £500, £1,000. I've heard of people paying more than £2,000. They basically take your money, they take your manuscript, and they, apparently get it ready and make it, publishable, and they put it out there. However, vanity publishing is called that because these companies will take any manuscript. So it doesn't matter whether you're talented or not, whether your book's good or not. They are working on a business model that they take potentially thousands of pounds from someone, get the book ready for publication and put it out there. They're not interested in the outputs, they're not interested in how you do, how many books you sell. You are basically paying to be published, and that's quite different to being self-published. And vanity publishing has nothing to do in terms of royalty rates. That's a separate matter. So I would be really, really careful about vanity publishing. It's not in your best interest. You could be spending thousands of pounds. I've heard about companies taking people's money and they're not actually even publishing the book on any of the platforms. So beware is what I would say to you. A couple of tips in terms of how to avoid being caught out by vanity publishers. There's a website called absolutewrite.com. That's the website address, but I think it's actually the water cooler, and it's a forum and people exchange advice on that website. It's a really nice community, and you can talk about you've been offered something by a publisher and whether they're legit or not. Is it vanity publisher, or actually are they an indie press, or are they a big publishing house? You can also talk to if you've got author friends, get their advice, ask them about different companies they've heard of and what their experiences are. Also the Society of Authors, I'm a member of the Romantic Novelists Association, and I meet people in network, and I could ask people that I know through that. So think about a writing association or organisation where you can again network and ask people's advice. And just think carefully, don't rush into anything, don't just sign a contract without having it checked and thinking carefully about what's being offered. So hopefully those tips are useful to you. I wish you lots of luck. Thank you for tuning in this week, and have an amazing week.